God just spoke to me as clear as day. He said, let me show you how you worship Minerva. I said, what? He said, you wear it on your clothes. You wear it on your shoes. He said, you wear it on your hats. He said, you wear it on your keychain. He said, you wear it in my church house. He said, then he told me, he said, you wear it on the back of your car. He said, there is no Christ in Delta Sigma Theta.
Hey, it's your girl All Jenkins back with another YouTube video. So in this video, I actually want to share Miss Sheila's testimony. But before I actually get into the testimony, if you have not already, hit the subscribe and you girl one time for the one time. Come on, roll. So, like I said, I want to share Miss Sheila's testimony. So Miss Sheila has been an active subscriber on my channel for a very, very long time. And she always comments. And so I actually ran into her at the Get Out Now conference, and the Lord highlighted her for her testimony. And so I'm super, super excited to hear her powerful, powerful, powerful testimony. Thank you so much, Miss Sheila, for saying yes to God. I am so, so excited to hear your powerful testimony.
You are more than welcome. I'm just so glad and humbled to be here. When you came to me and you said, Miss Sheila, I think I want you to be on my YouTube channel. And God spoke to me and he said, it's time. I said, what? He said, it's time. I said, okay, Lord. I said, I hear you. I said, I'm an obedient follower of God, so I've got to do what you asked me to do. So I do thank you for this opportunity.
Amen. You are so welcome. You are so welcome. So let's just start from your childhood. Can you tell me about your childhood?
Well, my childhood, I guess you would say I had a normal life. My grandmother and my grandfather, they raised me from age 2 to 6 years of age because at the time, in 1970, they didn't have Head Start. You just went straight into first grade. So my mom and my dad, they were educators. So they didn't have a babysitter. So my grandmother and my grandfather, they raised me. And of course, I was out in the country. There were no other children but myself. And I did have two cousins. They lived with my grandmother and my grandfather. They raised them. And so we were kind of like sisters. They were like my big sisters. And still to this day, they're still like my big sisters. And I was brought up in the church. Grandfather, man of God, educator as well. My grandmother, she only went to eighth or ninth grade, if I'm not mistaken. And she was 21 years younger than my grandfather. So yes, my grandfather was older. And
Wait. Hold on, Miss Sheila. We ain't gonna go past this. Hold on. Okay. First off, where are you from? You said in the country.
Okay, I'm from a small town called Webb, Mississippi. It's about 30 or 32 miles from Greenwood, Mississippi. But I grew up in Holcomb, Mississippi, a place called Holcomb, Mississippi, which is close to Grenada, Mississippi. And so my grandmother and my grandfather lived back in the country. Long gravel road, pasture full of cows. So we were really back in the country. And my grandmother had a garden. She grew collard greens, turnip greens, mustard greens. They had they had all of that. They had horses, they had chickens. My grandmother had a chicken shed, and she would go out there and get the eggs, and she would fix us breakfast and so forth. So yeah, we were in the country. So as I said before, my grandmother was 21 years younger than my grandfather.
So how old was your grandma and how old was your grandfather?
I'm just gonna say my grandfather might have been 40 and she might have been like 20 or 21. Yes.
Okay.
And from that, they had 12 children. And 3 of them, she had a miscarriage. So she had 9 children, 8 girls, 1 boy. And all of my aunts are retired educators, including my mom. Yeah. So I came up with nothing but teachers in the family. You couldn't use incorrect grammar because they would correct you and so forth. So just full of house of the educators. And of course, going to church was not one of my cup of tea, but I had to go because my grandmother was a Sunday school teacher. My grandfather was like the deacon in the church. So, they have the deacons sit on one end and they do the hymn and everything. So I'll be sitting back there in the back with my little dog, waiting on them to finish. And then as I got older, my grandmother wanted me to be the secretary in the church. Now, that's something I did not want to do. But I went on ahead. I had to because that was my grandparents. I had to be obedient. And then I think as I got a teenager, they wanted me to be the mistress of ceremonies. I'm like, this ain't my job. I'm like, you can get someone else to do this. But
What's that?
like they have a program and you have to be the mistress of ceremony and tell who's everybody on the program. So that's basically what I had to do. I didn't like it. But I was so glad when I went to college because then I was like, oh, she can't ask me to do that because I'm in college now. But I didn't want to go to Alcorn. That's where I went to school at Alcorn State University. And I said, what mama in their mind was sending their child way down here in the woods? But see, my grandmother wanted me to go because all of my aunts graduated from Alcorn. So she wanted me to go. Now, my mom, she was a baby. She went to school at Mississippi Valley State University. So she wanted to be closer to home, but she sent me down in the woods. So I was like, y'all would really leave me here? And so they did. I cried like a baby all that night.
So when did you start eyeing the deltas? Because the delta is in this conversation.
Well, I have to go back to that because my cousin pledged graduate chapter, Delta. And from that, I always wanted to become a Delta. I saw her and I was like, oh, wow. I said, I want to become a Delta. She said, look, when you go to college, that's all you're going to pledge is Delta. I said, well, that's why I want to pledge. I said, I don't want to pledge anything else. And she said, well, when you get ready to pledge, then I'm going to help you with everything. I'm going to pay you money, whatever you need. I got you. And I said, okay. I said, no problem. So it was kind of crazy. My sophomore year, when I was there, they have the tree and they have the sidewalk. You can't walk on that sidewalk. You have the tree. You go take a picture by the tree. Are you a Delta? And I don't know, we're not, and so you have to be careful, especially when you're at HBCU school, you're a freshman or sophomore, and you're just admiring everything. You don't want anything, you're just admiring everything. So you just have to be careful when you're on the yard. But I was a sophomore and I was interested in Delta. And so these two young girls, they were upperclassmen and they took class with me. I was in education and they took class with me and they knew that I wanted to pledge Delta. Well, come to find out, one of the Deltas, she and I were dating the same guy. Didn't know it, had no clue whatsoever.
So you out of the running.
Look, I already knew. So she and myself, we were dating the same guy. And this is how it came about. My old roommate had told me, she said, Sheila, why don't you go fix them some chicken and take it over there to him? I said, girl, I ain't fix nobody on chicken. She said, girl, go on. That, you can feed me. We ain't got nothing on the yard anyway to eat. I was like, okay. So me listening to her, I went on over there. We went over there in the car and took some chicken. He was like, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, about 2 days ago, 2 days later, Alcorn had telephones. So we actually had telephones in the room. So this Delta called me and told me, she said, Sheila, I need you to come to my room. So I'm like, who is this? And she said, I live in so-and-so, so-and-so. So when I got there, I was nervous because I'm, a sophomore. I'm like, I'm not even online. Why is she calling me? What does she want? So I went in to her room and she was lying on her bed and everything. And she was like, girl, let me tell you, that chicken was so good. And my eyes was like, what chicken? And I'm saying to myself, this girl didn't eat the chicken. I said, she was in the room when I brought it over there to him. And I was like, okay. She said, oh, it was so delicious. I was like, oh, okay. I heard you wanted to be a Delta. I said, yeah, I'm interested. And so after I told her that, she said, well, that's all I wanted to know. You can leave. And I was like, okay. So I'm still nervous at this time. So I went back to my room and I told my old roommate. So of course she wanted to fight. I said, look, we ain't finna do that. I said, we ain't finna do that. I said, we ain't not getting in any trouble. You know, you always had that one friend that always want to fight. So from that, I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So about a day later, these same two Deltas, they were upperclassmen and they were in my class and they pulled me to the side and I'm like, oh my God, what is getting ready to happen? But they pulled me to the side to tell me, they said, Sheila, we found out that she called you and wanted you to come to her room. She said, number one, you're not online. She said, number two, just because you're interested, you don't have to do anything anyone tells you. And I said, oh, wow. I said, thank you for telling me that. She said, look, we know you. She said, we've taken class with you. You're very quiet, reserved. You speak to us and, we speak that. She said, but do not do that again. And she said, if she ever calls you, you let us know. We'll take care of her. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I walked out. I felt good. I'm like, oh, somebody taking up from me, and I was like, oh my God. So I went back and I told my old roommate, she said, well, I told you I would get her for you. I was like, it ain't like that. I said, we ain't got to do that. So, like I said, you always got that one friend who always wants to fight. And she wanted to fight. And I told her, I said, no, we're not going to do that. I said, because I don't want to get put out of school and neither do you. And so she was like, okay. But the thing was is that I did not make it because of the fact that I was dating another Delta school friend. But keep in mind now, she and myself were dating the same guy. So I submitted, did not make it. So that was my sophomore year. But then it came on to my junior year. So it's like, okay, junior year is coming up. I said, I can probably be able to pledge now.
Yeah.
Well, thought so. I went on ahead, submitted my application. Well, the reason why I did not get chosen this time, my old roommate was dating the Delta, one of the Delta's boyfriend. So I couldn't pledge because of that. It was because of her, my old roommate. And she told me, I'm gonna go and tell them. I said, no, no, no. I said, you're gonna leave that all alone. I said, we're gonna leave it alone. But the crazy part about it is, when you're on campus and you select a certain number of girls to go over to pledge and whatever. So I don't know exactly how many girls it was at that time to pledge, but nationals came along and they took about 20 other girls, on that line. But the problem where I saw that they did not do right about the 20 girls that nationals had put online. They did not include them in anything. They wouldn't tell them when they were going to go study. They didn't even tell them when they were going over. And I thought that was so hurting. And I'm like, really, Sheila, you want to be a part of this and they're doing this? This is not right. And I remember one of the young girls because she used to do my hair. And it was just so devastating because they were crying and it was hurtful. It was hurtful. And I just never seen anything like that. And I said, I would never do that to anyone. And they did. When they went over, they didn't include them in the stepping. They didn't do any of that. And I was like, you mean tell me I want to pledge this? And I got mad then because one of my friends was on that line that Nationals had put on there. And I was like, this is not right. I said, this is not right at all. But that's what they did. So senior year, I didn't worry about it. I didn't even try to pledge. I was like, forget this. So my cousin said, girl, don't even worry about that. You just pledge grad chapter. I got you. I said, okay. And then the thing about it is I worked in the education department. So I worked around older women who were, who had already pledged. I think two of them were AKs and two of them were Deltas. So it was like I was their little niece. And they took me up under their wings and was just showing me around. So like, she will, don't worry about this. You need a letter. If you want to pledge graduate chapter, we'll do this for you. So I was like, oh my gosh. I said, that's so nice of you all, because that was my work study. And in my work study, like I said, they were there. And I just looked up to them and I'm like, oh, such prestigious women, they held leaderships. One was the department chairperson. Her name was Dr. So-and-so. And I was like, okay. And the other one's named Dr. Dick. I said, well, okay. I said, this seems like this is where I want to be. This is where I want to go, because that's basically what I really wanted to do. I wanted to pledge Delta, and it was in my heart because my cousin had pledged Delta. So I was like, okay. But then let me go back. I did not know at the time when I was growing up that I had two aunts who had pledged Zeta. I did not know that until I got older. And I was like, I said, Mama, you didn't tell me. Mama said, girl, I wasn't fooling with that foolishness. That's a bunch of foolishness. And I was like, I said, you didn't tell me that. She said, well, you never asked. I said, oh, okay. But they never talked about it. They pledged way back in the day. So when they pledged, that was it. They didn't, pursue it any further. They didn't try to get in the graduate chapter. They just left it where it was. So those were the only two that I knew of at the time. So the rest of them, they was like, mm-mm. One of them told me, she said, I knew it was not of God. I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, no, she said, she said, I just didn't tell you. And she didn't. She didn't tell me until years later. She didn't tell me until years later. When I confronted her and asked her, she said, yeah. She said, I saw what those deltas were doing. And she said, I knew that is not what I wanted to do. And I was like, but y'all never told me. And they was like, you never asked. I said, okay. I said, well, that sums it up right there. I never asked.
How did you find out that you didn't make it the first time because you was dating a guy, and then the second time you didn't make it because your roommate was dating the guy that you? How you find out those two things?
Somebody told me. Yeah, somebody told me. And they were one of the, I guess, I don't know, they held a position in the organization. And they are the ones that told me. And I left it alone until I graduated. And after I graduated, where I work now, there were so many deltas everywhere, everywhere. One of the young ladies that she and myself, we were hired on the same day, and we worked here. And she was a delta. She pledged to Jackson State, and she and myself, we're still friends to this day. After 28 years, I saw her first child being born and so forth. And I told her about that I was interested in Delta. But, I just didn't go into details or anything. I just told her, I said, yeah, I'm interested, in becoming a Delta. And I said, that's what I always wanted to do. And she said, oh, okay. But she didn't say anything else. And so she began to start introducing to me, some of the Deltas here on the campus where I work. And like I said, they held prestigious leadership positions, families, career oriented, so forth. So most of them, I think they were older Deltas. And they kind of, same thing, took me up under their wings. And I was like, do I really do I really want to do this? And this is what I told the Lord. I said, Lord, if this is for me, it's for me. If it's not, it's not. But I never asked him. That's all I told him. That was it. That was just it. So from that, they came to me and they said, Sheila, we're getting ready to have a rush and we would like for you to come. I said, oh, okay. So I called my cousin. I said, girl, they didn't call me. I said, they want me to come to the rush. And she was like, oh, no. She said, now, you can't have no other sorority colors on and whatever. I said, well, girl, what the heck am I wearing? And so she said, girl, just wear some, but don't wear no sorority colors. I said, okay. And so I went to the rush, and it's whole, I can't remember exactly how many of us were there, but it was quite a few. And with the graduate chapter, it's kind of almost the same way. You have your picks and your chooses of who you want to belong. So, but because I had so many that was on this campus that liked me, that knew me, they talked up to me because I got a little nervous in the interview. And it's like, just give her a chance, just give her a chance. And so then I finally went on through the interview. And all of them was sitting there, they call them a nervous circle. So they're sitting all around, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And I'm saying to myself, what have I got myself into? Because there was so many of them. I had never experienced this because I never never had an interview because when I was attending all for them, I was denied. So when they were all there, I was like, okay, so this is real. So I felt a little bit more comfortable. and went on and answered my questions and so forth, and just went from there. And then I guess like they had told us, once you go through your interview, we will be calling you or send you a letter if you've been accepted or if you've been denied or whatever. So I called my cousin. I told her, I said, girl, I didn't go through the interview. I said, I don't know what's going to happen from here. I said, but I got my money. So she was like, girl, I'm going to send you some money just in case. Just be on the lookout. I was like, okay. And I remember um, it was I want to say on a Friday night, I got the call and they said, bring you your money and so and so. I said, oh, and we had like 24 hours to get our money together. So I called my cousin. I told her, I said, girl, I didn't got accepted. I said, girl, I said, I got my money. I said, I'm going down here. And they had, you had to do it on money order and so forth. So went on and I took it there. Then come to find out there were people that I knew that I worked with, they had gotten accepted as well. Basically, like I guess two of them, two or three, I think. They worked on the campus with me. So I was like, okay, I know them. One works in my department. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, so come to find out it was 34 of us that was online, graduate chapter. And that one thing I know about the graduate chapter, you know, all these years, they don't do big lines. They're small lines. They don't do no real big lines because these are older deltas. They, reserve, they have their families, their careers, they go to church and all of this. So they don't have time for that. They don't have time for no foolishness. Everything by the book. Everything by the book. And that night it was 34 of us. We went to pay our money at someone's house. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was one Delta taking up the money and so forth. And I think that was in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, in the spring 2002. And they were taking up the money and so forth. And then they told us we had to have these white dresses and so forth. I was like, white? I said, that's Easter stuff. I'm like, why I gotta wear this stuff? So of course you got the white shoes, the white stockings, the white dress. All of it to me was ugly. So I was like, okay. I was like, I gotta do this. So we stayed online, I guess it was about a month. And like I said, we studied this back and forth. We wouldn't get in till like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And then you had to go to work the next day. So it was just long and drawn out. And I was just so ready for it to be over with. I was so ready for it to be over with.
Wait, okay, wait. What were y'all doing, Miss Sheila? So y'all only had a above ground process, right? Or y'all
Yeah,
had film? Were y'all pledging or no?
yeah, we were pledging, but they didn't do no hazing. They didn't do any of that. We didn't do underground stuff. This
Okay.
was we would go to a certain place at night to study, and that's where we had to go study. That's where we had to meet, and they call it the Odyssey, where we go together for the weekend and so forth, and everything like that. So I think it may be just a weekend, and they didn't take us far because most of us. I didn't live in the town, where where the chapter is. I live like I guess 25 miles away. So when I got off work, I had to go there, and they would keep you all night to 1 and 2 o'clock. I'm like, who keeps people up this time of morning studying? But they did, and they would take turns. Some of the older deltas they would take turns. And meeting with us and telling us you need to study this. If you don't study this, you're not going to be a delta. You got to pass this, and so we went through that. I guess about 5 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. And then when we got ready to cross over, of course, we had to wear them same little white dresses again. And I think we came into a room or somewhere where your special sister would bring you gifts and everything. And I think it's one of my friends now to this day. I think she was the one that brought me my gifts. I can't remember because we were so tired that night. And then, everybody hugging each other, congratulating each other, and so forth. From that, I think the next day, I think it was that night when I went home the next day, I did not wear any paraphernalia for one full month. I just coming out, brand new, but did not want to wear any paraphernalia for a whole month. I don't even know why. And I just thought about that the other day. I said, Lord, when I pledged, I said I didn't wear a shirt for one full month. Nobody didn't even know that I was a Delta at all. And I was like, what's that all about? I said, because I was tired. I was just tired. I didn't even want to see a Delta shirt. And my cousin had bought me shirts and got me little bags and whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, well. And then finally, about after maybe 5 weeks, I wore a shirt, but I felt strange in it because I wanted this, but I just felt strange. Being in the Delta shirt. And I'm like, I'm actually a Delta. I said, oh my gosh. I said, is this real? And it was. And I saw the little certificate and so forth with my name on it. And I was like, wow. I said, I am a Delta. And this is what I said. I said, thank you, Lord. I said, you answered my prayer. Yep, yep. I sure did. And he
How
did.
was your relationship with God?
Okay. I got saved when I was 29.
Oh,
Yeah, I got saved when I was 29. Me and one of my friend girls, and this is so crazy, and I know people do crazy things. Me and my friend girl, we would every time, and I have to say this, every time we had sex, we would say, girl, did you get your son this weekend? We would high five each other when we would see each other. Oh, yeah. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was crazy. And we were like 29, 30, and I'm like, we ain't thinking nothing about God or nothing like that. But this one particular time, she and myself were talking about it. And she said, Sheila, we got to stop this foolishness. I said, you know what? You're exactly right. I said, I want to know God. I said, I was brought up in the church, knew who God was and everything. But, you don't really think about it until he starts kind of like tapping you on your shoulder and saying, hey, 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 I'm here. What you're doing is wrong and you need to get yourself together. So this one particular time, my friend girl and myself, when we came to work, she said, Sheila, I got something to tell you. I said, I got something to tell you too. And she said, what is it? And we both said, we're saved. I said, what? And she was like, yeah, I got baptized yesterday. I said, well, I got saved at home. And I remember kneeling down at my bedside and I told God, just to finish having sex with my boyfriend. And I felt God's presence upon my life at 29. And I gave my life to Christ and I wept and I cried and I was just like, Lord, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But that was when I was 29. So of course, when you say you still dibble and dabble in sin. And one thing that I do know, you have the tendency to sin and sometimes you will sin. But God says grace and mercy.
so how old were you when you crossed into Delta? Were you saved?
I was saved. I was 32 when I pledged. And so that was like 19 years. Yeah. I was 32 when I pledged. And when I think about some of the videos that I've seen, and it was like, when you graduate, you still want to pledge. You're 30 and 40 years old. Oh, it helps me. you know? And what one thing that God had told me, and I was so tickled, God says, I never told you to pay no dues, Sheila. He said, I always told you to pay your tithes. I said, well, I do pay my tithes. He said, but I never told you to pay your dues.
So while you were going through the process, while you were online, were you feeling any type of conviction, any red flags, anything from the Holy Ghost?
When I tell you not one, nothing, nada, nothing, nothing at all. Never even saw it. Just all I wanted to do was play Delta. I never even gave it a thought at all. But just to see how God works, He waits and comes back. Once you have grown in Christ, he'll bring it back to your remembrance.
Wow. So how did you end up denouncing? So how did that come about?
Wow, you won't believe it. It was your video.
Boom! Yes, it was.
It was your video. It was on January 24th, 2022. It was your video with your friend. And I was on my way to work and I subscribed to this YouTube called Grace for Purpose Prayers. And every morning they would say a prayer and I will listen. And this was on my way to work and I was listening. So it just so happened, I'm just driving down the highway. And after I finished listening to it and I did my prayer with God and everything, this video pops up of you and your friend. I'm looking like, what is this? I said, denouncing. I said, I don't even know nothing about this. But little did I know that God was getting ready to turn my heart. And I didn't know this. So I listened to you all's video on my way to work for 30 minutes. So I got to work, went in and signed in the office and spoke. Got in my car. Still didn't think anything of it. But as I was getting out my car to go in my office, God spoke. He said, when you get home, I need you to get rid of your elephants. So I'm like, yeah, right. I got on out of my car, came on to the office, sat down. Me and my coworker, we just talking. Didn't say anything to her or nothing like that. Got ready to leave from work, 3:30, like we normally do. Got in my car. God spoke again. He said, when you get home, I need you to get rid of your elephants. I said, okay. Is this God talking to me or is this me? That's what I was saying to myself. So I got home, pulled up in the driveway. He said, I said, when you got home, I need you to get rid of your elephants. I said, okay, you ain't got to tell me no more. I know it's you. I said, let me go get my bag. So I went and got a garbage bag. I went to the storage, found all the elephants, and went, I think in the house, I found an elephant. And my mom was wondering what I was doing because she lives with me. She was like, what you doing? I said, no. I said, just don't concern you. Don't worry about it. So she was like, oh, okay then. So I went on, I got the elephants, put them in a bag, put them in the garbage. So I said, okay, Lord, I done it. I said, now if that's all you want me to do, that's all I'm gonna do. So I went on to my room and everything. The next day, came to work. I still ain't told my coworker nothing. So when I got back in my car to get ready, this is another day on that Tuesday. Something said, Sheila, you just need to talk to me. And I said, okay. So it was God. And he said, I need to talk to you. So first, before he said that, I told him, I said, Lord, I said, I need to know if I am in this sorority and it is not of you. I said, I need you to reveal it to me. And I said, I'm not going to be afraid of whatever you've got to reveal to me. Because at that time, I'd seen your video, but I didn't question it. Didn't question it. So within 2 minutes, God says, let me show you what you're worshiping. I said, what? He said, get your pyramid book and your Bible and let me show you what you're worshiping. Because I asked him. And if you know you have a relationship with God and you ask him, he'll show you anytime. He doesn't care day or night. He will show it to you. So I went in my closet and found this old pyramid book that I've been had for years. Never looked at it. I pulled it out. And I guess on the second, third, or fourth page, I'm not exactly sure, it said, we do not worship Minerva, goddess of Minerva, goddess of wisdom. God just spoke to me as clear as day. He said, let me show you how you worship Minerva. I said, what? He said, you wear it on your clothes. You wear it on your shoes. He said, you wear it on your hats. He said, you wear it on your keychain. He said, you wear it in my church house. He said, then he told me, he said, you wear it on the back of your car. He said, there is no Christ in Delta Sigma Theta. My mouth just dropped because I'm saying to myself, what are you saying, Lord? He said, you asked me, and I'm telling you. So I sat there by my bedside and I looked through the pyramid. He said, you do worship. And he said, let me also tell you. He said, you never made it an idol. It is an idol in your life. And I said, what are you talking about? And he was like, Sheila, he said, I am the God of wisdom. I am the God of life. I'm the God of knowledge. He said, but you all call her goddess of wisdom. You know, I'm just thinking this is just a wooden carved image. Never really even thought anything of it. And then when he said, you worship me, he said, every time y'all have an event, it's there. He said, when you go to your meetings, it's there. And so when you pledged, it was there. So he's getting ready to bring me back to remembrance of all of these things because I asked him and I wanted to know. So at that moment, it was, I guess, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. He began to allow me to research. He said, I need you to go on Google. I need you to look up denouncing and renouncing. And I said, Okay. And I stumbled up on an article of a young lady, and I can't think of her first name, but I know her last name was Wiggins. And she had an article that talked about denouncing and renouncing Delta Sigma Theta. I read that article from beginning to end, and I had chills because just what he had told me about Goddess of Minerva, she had said the same thing. Then, after he had me to do that, he said, I need you to open up your Bible. Go to Deuteronomy 5, verse 7 and 9. And I said, okay. So it had, you should have no other God before me. So thinking to myself, I was like, Lord, I never put Delta first. I always put you first. He said, I know you did. He said, but it's an idol. He said, I will not have any other false gods before me. He said, before me, in my midst, in my present, in the front, in the back, from side to side. I said, okay. I said, I hear you. I said, okay, I got it. So I began to just start reading that. And as I was reading, my heart just started, it was like I was just saying, I was like, Lord, I didn't know. He said, I know you didn't know. He said, there are a lot of you don't know. He said, and there are some of you who do know. And he said, the ones that do know, I will hold them accountable. I said, oh, I said, okay. So that night, after I read the article and stuff, I laid down and I prayed. So this is all in 1 week's time. The third day, I think that was the third day. I came to work. My coworker said, Sheila, I got something to tell you, but I don't know how you're going to take it. I said, girl, what you got to tell me? It took my coworker 34 minutes to tell me what she needed to tell me. And I said, girl, come tell me what it is. She said, oh, I don't know. You may not talk to me. You may not be my friend. Girl, you may stop fixing me snickerdoodles. I said, girl, no, I'm not. I said, what is it? And she was like, Sheila, she turned around in her chair and she said, God says you got to get out of that sorority. I said, what did you just say? She said, don't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me. I said, no. I said, I'm not mad at you, but I just need you to tell me again. So when she said that, I said, that's the confirmation. I said, because you had already started working in me, God. So I stood up in my chair. I raised my hand. She said, what? I said, you're not going to believe this. I said, but God is already working on me. I said, he told me to get rid of my eloquence. And her eyes got big as a balloon. She was like, what, Sheila? I said, yes. I said, he means. She said, well, I got something else. I said, what else you got to tell me? So I'm thinking it's something bad. And she was like, no. She said, he wants you to look at this video. It was Fred Price, his video of, what was it, Masons, sororities, and fraternities. I watched the entire sermon back to forth, and it gave me chills just like it is now because I couldn't believe it. But I pulled out my Bible, and everything he said was true because, God says, test the spirit by the spirit. And I was like, Lord, I cannot believe this. And he said, yeah. He said, all of them. He said, all of them. And I said, oh my gosh. So that's when the third day I went home. He said, it's time for me to get rid of everything. So I started snatching pictures off my wall that was over my bed, over my head. I'm like, Lord, I got this mess over my head. And he said, yes, you do. He said, you got to get rid of it. So let me go back. I gotta go back. In 2019, God sent me a video again on YouTube, and it was a young lady, and she looks like Kim Whitley off of Living Single. And he brought that to me, but I ignored him. I was like, oh, okay, she's saying this, whatever. So not that I heard it, but I kind of ignored it. And I went back and I thought about it. I said, Lord, you sent me a video in 2019. He said, yes, you did. He said, yes, I did. You ignored me. He said, but I was like, okay. He said, because I knew the day that you pledged, and I knew the day that I was going to deliver you. And I was like, oh, wow. I said, Lord, he said, you remember you told me if it's for me, it's for me, and it's not, it's not. I said, yeah. I said, God, I know you got a sense of humor. He said, but you told me that. And he said, I knew that. He said, but just to come back around 3 years later with another YouTube. And he said, why it was so easy for me to come to you? He said, because it was your heart posture. Because at that time, you were studying, meditating on my word, talking to me every day, praying every day. He said, so you knew that it was some truth to this. And I said, yeah, but still, May 2019, back then, same friend, same coworker told me. She said, Sheila, she said, y'all do all this stuff in the church, right? I said, oh yeah, we do it in the church. She said, you don't see anything wrong with that. You don't see God is not pleased with that. I snapped and I told her, I said, girl, we built up on Christian principles. That was my response to her. So she never said anything else to me again. Then I want to say it might have been in 2020, COVID or 2021. My nephew came to me. Nephew's not Greek or anything. He said, Auntie Sheila, you're a Christian, right? I said, yeah, I'm a Christian. He said, you saved? I said, yes, I am. He said, you know you're not supposed to be in a sorority. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you're dealing with demonic spirits. Now, I don't talk to my nephew about sororities or fraternities. And he said, you're dealing with demonic spirits, Auntie. He said, you're not supposed to be in that organization. I snapped again. I said, we built them on Christian principles. That's all I had to give. Christian principles, because that's what they tell us. So forward back to 2022. That third day after my coworker told me I got rid of everything, God started telling me, go wherever, to go there, whatever. Then my nephew came in. He said, yeah, you don't need none of this. You don't need this. And he was helping me. And so I had maybe like 3 or 4 bags. And then I sent it to one of my friends. And she knew that it was not of God. Because when we asked her in 2017, we were getting ready to have a line, we asked her to come to the rush. She said, Sheila, I got to pray. I said, okay. So she did. She prayed. She got our answer from God. And he said, no. He said, they're already your sisters in Christ. He said, you don't have to belong to an organization. So when she said that, we was like, you're good because you're still my friend. That doesn't change anything. So back to 2022. All of this had happened between 2019 and him telling me this, and I'm ignoring him, my nephew telling me. God brought all this back to remembrance in 2022 to tell me, he said, you remember your coworker told you? He said, no, we're built on Christian principles. He said, your own nephew told you. You said, no, we're built on Christian principles. He said, that's good. And I said, wow. So he had me to, I destroyed the ritual book. He had me to shred that up. I had bags of stuff. And then after I got rid of all of it, I sent a picture to my friend. And she said, oh my gosh. She said, thank you, Lord. So my coworker and my other friend, they saw me go through the process. And one of them said, Sheila, when God gave you that truth, you ran with it. And that's what I was doing. So I'm seeing all these denunciation videos, renouncing or whatever. And I said, well, Lord, what am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do, man? What am I supposed to post with it? He said, nope. He said, I'm going to use you right where you are among your family and your friends. I said, I thought that's what I was talking about. So that same week went by, another week. And he said, by the first week, I was done with everything. I had done everything, done the renunciation prayer and everything. But one thing that I knew that happened to me, I was on my way to the grocery store. And it just all fell on my heart so heavy. I just cried and I cried and I cried. And I said, Lord, I'm so sorry. I did not know. And he said, Sheila, I know you didn't know. He said, that's why I'm bringing it to you now. This is because you need to know. And I cried and I asked him for forgiveness. I asked him. And my friend said, okay, Sheila, you didn't ask him for forgiveness. Stop crying. He's already forgiven you. I said, I know. I said, Lord, I was in it for 19 years. He said, it's okay. He said, because this can really be a new beginning. I said, okay. So about the second week, he said, now, He said, I'm going to need you to tell these 10 people. I said, what? He said, I'm going to need you to tell these 10 people. And he gave me the names. And he told me, he said, 3 of them is going to fall in different ears. I said, oh, okay. He said, but what I want you to do, he said, there will be 2 of them. I want you to tell the full testimony. And he said, then the other ones, I want you to tell them that it's not of God and you've got to leave. I said, okay. So 3 of them were my former line sisters. And I told them, and they was like, what do I need to do? What do I need? I said, look, hold, wait 1 minute. I said, this is nothing for you to do. I said, God has just told me I had to tell you. I said, now, if you want to know, you go before the Lord yourself. I'm not telling you what to do. I want you to just say, Sheila said so and so. I said, no, that is not what I'm doing. I said, I got to be obedient and do what God has told me to do. So the 10th person was supposed to be my cousin. She was the Delta. And she had been in it for 37 years. And I had to tell her. God had given me a time limit to tell her. So this is like a week after in January, maybe in February or whatever. So your video, I know, take that back. Tia's a video that had you all on there to get out now. And you were reminding us to have it. So God told me, he said, you got to watch this video. I said, huh? He said, I need you to watch this video. So for 2 hours and 30 minutes, I sat in front of the TV. I was glued because I was like, Lord, their testimonies are so similar to mine. He said, because Sheila, I'm trying to call my children out before it's too late. I said, what? He said, yes. So I watched you all's video. I was crying again. And I said, Lord, I said, they are telling the truth. I said, I remember. He said, sometimes you don't remember. He said, but I have to bring it back to your remembrance. He did that. So after I finished watching the video, that's when he told me this. And then you got to cousin. I said, what? He said, yeah, you got to tell her. I said, okay. He said, but you got a time limit. She's going to be the last person we tell for now. I said, whoa. So after I finished watching, I think it might have been a Saturday, and I think it was a Sunday the next day. He said, you got to tell her. I said, Lord, what do I say? I said, I don't know how to tell her. I said, she probably stopped being my cousin. I said, I don't even know. So God just gave me the word. And he was like, he said, Sheila, I'm going to walk you through this. And he said, I'll be there with you every step of the way. I said, okay. And I was so nervous. My heart was just pounding. I said, Lord, what I'm going to do. So he said, just call me. So I called her and I said, hey, girl, what's up? So I said, call what is? God, I got us some Delta stuff. So, Lord, I said, Lord, she had gone and bought us some things and everything. And I was like, what I got to tell them. So I said, well, she said, you still there? I said, yeah, I'm still here. I said, well, I have to tell you something. And she was like, what is it? I said, I have left the sorority. She said, oh, girl, oh, okay. I said, no. I said, you don't understand. I said, I have denounced your Nelson membership. She paused. She said, okay, girl, I'm still going to love you anyway. I said, okay. I said, but I have to tell you my testimony. So I began to start telling her, just like I'm telling you, from beginning to end. That was a 4-hour conversation about this. And what God reminded me, he said, Sheila, you remember you knelt down on that pillow? I said, yes, I do. He said, when you knelt down on that pillow, did you know that there was another altar? I said, no. I said, I did. He said, but let me tell you something. He said, the devil figured out a way how to make you all bow down to him. And I thought about when, Satan took God to the wilderness on top of the mountain, and he was saying, if you just bow down and worship me, God says, that was you. And he said, that's what you did. So I really didn't know, I couldn't remember about the oaths and the covenants that I took until I watched you all's video. And I said, Lord, he said, a covenant is an agreement. And he said, Sheila, the only covenant that I honor is my promises in between a husband and a wife. He said, not an agreement with an organization. He said, I do not honor that. And he said, there was a covenant that you made to me for the rest of your life. I said, wow. So when I told my cousin all of this, she said, girl, I ain't get down on no pillow. God, that's been some years ago. That was so and so. God says, just tell me. Just tell me. It was like, okay. So as I told her, she was like, well, okay, I'm gonna love you. I said, okay. I said, well, we still good, we still family, it's no hard feelings. I said, but I gotta do what God has told me. So after I finished watching you all's video, God told me, He said, it's time for you to write a letter. I said, write a letter? I said, what are you talking about? He said, you gotta have your name on the sheet. He said, do you want your name on the Lamb Book of Life and a membership roster? I said, what? He said, you can only have your name in the Lamb Book of Life. He said, not on the membership roster. I said, wow. He said, so when you sign that agreement, he said, the only way that you can get out, you got to write a letter. So that's what I heard from you all. And I was like, okay. So I was telling my friend girl about it. And she was like, girl, why you got to write a letter? God has already delivered you. I said, no. I said, it's another step that I didn't even know. And she was like, so I sent her the scripture, same thing, Deuteronomy 5, verse 7 and 9. But I went to the website, and I think you were the one that said, out from among them. It blew my mind when I read everything in there. Because I'm like, Lord, it's just like a marriage. If you're getting a divorce, he said, exactly. He said, some piece of paper. He said, so you remember that certificate that I had you throw away? He said, your name was remembered. And I was like, oh my God. I said, Lord, I said, this is too much. This is too much for me. He said, no. He said, because I'm just giving you the truth. He said, because of what you need to hear. So after that, I think it was in March when I wrote my letter. But I didn't hear from them. And I was like, I said, but you told me to write the letter. So God had to allow me to rewrite the letter because I forgot to put my email address on there. And he said, go ahead, signature, get every signature required. So they received it in June of 2022. So I said, okay, Lord, what else you need for me to do? So he was like, oh, I told you I'm gonna use you right where you are. So it's like, okay. So I began to tell one of my coworkers, he's in a fraternity. As I began to tell him, he just blasted me out. Y'all the only one that got an idol in y'all life. Y'all the only one that got an idol on your ship. And nobody else has that. I said, oh, okay. God said, don't say nothing. He said, don't even entertain that thought or that foolishness. So my coworker and myself tried to tell him. Now, during this process, as I was coming out, my coworker did not know, and I didn't know, she was an Eastern Star. She had to go and find her certificate as well. So God says, while Sheila is coming out of Delta, he said, I need you to go to your closet and look in your box. He said, you got a certificate with Eastern Star on it. She said, oh my goodness. She didn't realize because she said she thought she had gotten rid of all of that and she was not a part of it anymore and so forth. I said, no, you got to do the same thing. You got to write a letter. So I helped her. We went back to the website. She wrote her letter. Same thing like I did. Signature required, all of that. And I sent mine priority mail. So went through that. And about a month later, my cousin, she said, Sheila, why I can't sleep at night? I was like, what are you talking about? You can't sleep. She was like, Sheila, she said, every time I turn, I see a delta. She said, I see that demon head. I said, demon head. So she called Goddess of Minerva, the demon head. And so I kept looking at it and I said to myself, I said, she is so right. I said, that's why my nephew said demonic spirits. But it just never really crossed my mind. But as God was calling me out of it, like I said, he allowed me to speak to people publicly, face to face, to let them know that I was not a part of the sorority. So I'm all in Walmart, seeing former Deltas, telling them. And one of them was about to break down. And I said, I was like, what is she about to break down? Because she didn't want to see me leave the sorority. She said, oh no. I said, it's not of God. And we're worshiping an idol. And I said, that idol is the goddess of Minerva. She almost cried because I was leaving. And I'm like, God, is it going to be like this all the time? He said, Sheila, they don't even insist on one government. He said, under their watch. I said, I said, I didn't know that. I said, okay. So in 2022, that's what he started doing, allowing me to say face to face to people and, everything because it was a small town. So everybody knew everybody. So once somebody said something, it was already out. But I had one former Delta police, my former line sister. She got mad because I didn't tell her first. She said, well, there's a reason Sheila got out. I said, well, I had to do what God told me to do. And I had to do it in the order that He wanted me to do it. I said, I cannot step out of His will. So that was last year when I told her, and she had the audacity to tell me, oh, you could have told me. I said, but I had to hear it from somebody else. I said, but I had to do it the way God wanted me to do it. I said, it was a certain word. And I said, He guides our footsteps and He allows us to do what He wants us to do because if we don't do it the way He wants us to do it, we're out of His will. And I said, I cannot do that. So I told her, and then I told another former line sister of mine, and they embraced me. They said, I respect that. So one of my homegirls, she and myself, we grew up together. And she said, Sheila, are you coming to the so-and-so? Well, wait, God says, this is what I'm talking about. He said, because I want you to tell them face to face. I said, oh. So I cornered her and I told her how much I loved her. And I said, no. I said, I don't know if you know. I said, but I've left the sorority. I said, I am no longer Greek. I'm no longer Delta. I'm no longer Sarah. And she said, I said, because God told me being in the sorority is not of Him. He said, none of it is of Him. And she said, okay. She said, well, we still family because we grew up together and so forth. I said, okay. And I embraced her. And God says, when I told you that I was going to use you right where you are, that's what I'm talking about. He said, because you're going to tell them face to face. He said, everybody, I have something different doing. He said, whether they're coming out on Facebook, whether they're posting a video, he said, everybody I do is something different. He said, because I want them to know. And I said, okay, Lord. I said, I hear you. And I said, so you use me, the way that you want me to. So it's so ironic. In 2023, I think of last year, I was at Alcorn and Jackson State Game, and I went to JCPenney. And you forget what email addresses that you have. So when I was coming out, I tried to delete everything that I had dealt on, everything. On my Twitter account. I never had anything on Facebook because I think I only had maybe like 5 pictures. And to be honest, my cousin and myself were talking about this. I didn't really take a lot of pictures. So I didn't even pick up on it, that this was not of God. I should have known something because I really didn't take any pictures. I think I had one picture and I saw it the other day and it was with a homegirl of mine. And this was 14 years ago. We were at a party and it was her sister's birthday party. That was the only picture that I ate. I was like, wow. I said, Lord, I never saw this. So I really didn't post pictures on Facebook. I'm just really not on Facebook like that, like I used to. I was on there like in 2003, 2004. But then as the years progressed, God just started pulling me back from social media. Now I do TikTok and whatever, but I don't really just post anything. I post about our students and stuff. I don't even post about my family. And so he said, that's why he said, I'm going to use you right where you are. You don't even know it. So we were, as 2022 going on, and then last year when I went to JCPenney's, this guy, he said, give me your email address. And I said, Sheila. And he said, oh, Delta Dial 02 at Yahoo. I said, no. He said, you a Delta? I said, no, I was a Delta. I'm no longer a Delta. And God told me that's the way He wants me to tell it. He said, you don't tell people, no, you're not Greek. He said, because you were Greek. He said, I want them to know that I delivered you. He said, so when they ask you, you're to say, I was Greek, but I'm no longer Greek. And he said, it starts a conversation piece. So the young man was at the register and he said, so you denounce? I said, yeah. And he said, Can I ask why? I said, sure. He said, oh, no, no, no. But at the same time, I saw on his wrist, he had a 5-finger sigma bracelet on. So you asked me that question. That means you were interested because you saw somebody's video and it piqued your heart. And so it's like, yeah, he was real quiet about it. And he said, well, I don't want to ask. I said, no. I said, God came to me in 2019. I ignored him. I said, I ignored him when my co-worker told me. I ignored him when my nephew told me. I said, but little did I know. He came back in 22, full and strong. Because he was like, oh, you going to listen to me this time, shit. And I did. And I renounced it, the repentance prayer and everything. And when I told my cousin about a month later, she said she couldn't sleep. October of 2022, she said, girl, give me that for a minute. I need to write my letter. I said, what? She said, why am I going outside? And I'm hearing these Delta calls and everything. I said, oh my gosh. I said, are you serious? She said, yes. She said, I cannot sleep ever since you told me. And I sent her the video. I think his name is Marcus, the Sigma, because she had wanted her son to pledge Alpha. And I sent her this. I said, I think you need to see this. And she said, Lord have mercy, I've been begging my son. She said, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I said, no, you can't. I said, you can't because it's not good. So in October 2022, she had gone to her last meeting. She said when she went to that meeting, she felt out of place. She said she felt darkness that she had never felt before. And she said she knew that was her last time. So when she called me, I said, let me send you the email. And I said, you go from there. And she said, she sent me a picture of all of it. Now, she had more than I did because she had been in it for 37 years. And to be honest, and that's why I said I never saw it, but I just didn't buy Delta, just stuff all the time. It didn't matter because I know, now that it was not of God. But I bought a lot, I bought things and so forth, and, just still didn't think anything of it. But during my process of coming out, which was it was so funny, God got a sense of humor. I had brought my friend some AKA stuff for AKA paraphernalia for her birthday. Spent almost $200 worth of stuff. God says, you cannot give that to her. I said, well, why? He said, because I'm bringing you out of something that's not of me. He said, I cannot allow you to do that. I said, so you want me to throw this stuff away? He said, yes, I do. And my mouth just dropped. And so my friend girl said, Sheila, I know where God is coming from because he's pulling you out of something that's not of him. He's not going to allow you to give it to somebody else because that means you're condoning what they're doing and saying it's okay. I said, you show right. I said, I never thought about it like that. And then I went on, I dumped it. He said, you find something else. So as I told my homegirl about me coming out, she said, Sheila, I went to regionals. And she said, I tried to buy you some Delta stuff. Every time I tried to buy you some Delta stuff, she said, God just wouldn't let me buy it. I said, because he knew he was getting ready to pull me out of the organization. I said, that's why you can buy it. She said, oh my God. She said, are you serious? I said, that's why you cannot buy it. That's why he would not allow you to buy it. I said, because he was pulling me out. And I said, I never saw it. And I said, never in a million years you would have told me that God would have delivered me. I said, but when he came and gave me that truth, my whole heart posture changed. And my coworker and my friend say, Sheila, I saw God changing you and how you ran with the truth. So of course, when you know the truth, you want to be able to tell everybody about it, but everybody's not going to be happy for you. You already know that. But the thing is about the 34 of my former line sisters, I only was close to maybe about 5 or 6. The rest of them, it's like, when you're in graduate chapter, you can only pledge in a certain surrounding area if your town does not have it. So some of the young ladies that were in line with me, they had parents that lived in that town. So they used their addresses to pledge. Once they pledged, they came to 2 meetings. They were going back to wherever they lived. So I never saw them. We never connected or anything. But maybe 5 or 6 that I did connect with because we worked on the same campus. And that was the reason why. The other ones, I don't know where they are. We're not friends on Facebook. it's just that. And like I said, God started pulling me away from Facebook maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. And I may post something 1 or 2 times, and it's mostly my students. And I was like, I said, Lord, I said, you were pulling me away from things and I didn't even know it. And it was just not Delta, but just people in my life. He started pulling away and he will place me with some other people, Christian people, women of God, that was there for me. And I couldn't see it. But as he was taking me out of Delta, I saw all of it and he allowed me to see it. And just last week, I was on my way home and he revealed to me the one that did not hear it. And it fell on deaf ears. And I said, oh my goodness. And I never would have thought it. Never would have. And
What you mean, Miss Sheila?
see, when God was bringing me out, he told me to tell those 10 people. He said it's going to fall on 3 people. It's going to fall on deaf ears. He said they're not going to hear it. And one of them was my closest friend. One of them was my closest friend. And she is a Delta. She did not want to hear it when I was coming out and everything. She said, no, I don't have time for that. And I remember watching one of your videos and said, guys, and stop sending them videos, pray for them. And that's what I began to do. I just began to pray. And I said, Lord, I said, now I see what you're talking about. He said, some people you're not going to be able to reach. He said, you're going to be, you can just tell them and move on. He said, that's what you're going to do. So before I came to the conference, it was like maybe a week or two. There was an older former Delta. And she was like my mentor or whatever and everything. And like I said, older people really don't get on Facebook. They don't do a lot of social media. So the president at the time when I got out was my former line sister. And I had to call her and I had to tell her, and she was asking me, is there something I can do? I said, no, there's nothing you can do. I said, nothing you have done. No one has done anything to me in the sorority. And she told me then, she said, Sheila, you're not the first person that has denounced or renounced. I know somebody else has as well. So we had a very short conversation. We talked, and then I called her mother because her mother was my former line sister as well. So to say all that, those were, she was our former president. So she was not going to allow anything up under her leadership, nobody to know that I had denounced, that I renounced or whatever, and, but I told them anyway when I saw them. And so they knew. But this one lady that I saw in the grocery store, and I was in Sam's, and I was minding my own business. And somebody said, hey, Sarah. I'm just kept pushing my button because I'm like, ain't no that. So looked over, it was her. And I said, hey, how are you? And I hugged her and I grabbed her by her hand. I said, I don't know if you know it. I said, but I've left the sorority because that's the way God wanted me. He said, that's how you tell them. Just don't bum out and just say, oh, you denounce and renounce. He said, you have to do everything in a loving way. And when I went to her, I grabbed her by her hand and I told her, I said, I am no longer a Delta. I'm no longer Greek. I'm no longer Soka. Her eyes got big as a balloon. She said, Sheila, I said, nobody did anything in the sorority. No one did anything to me. I said, it was God who revealed it to me. And I said, he revealed all of it to me. I said, he allowed me to study all of the divine mind. And that's another thing he said. He said, ain't nothing divine about that. I said, they took my name in divine and used it in front of divine men. He said, there was nothing divine about sororities and fraternities. I spoke because it's like God is still telling me things now, even though I have denounced and renounced, received my letter last May. I got it in a folder. I said, good riddance. I put it on there because they tell you will never ever please. I'm like, baby, I'm not going to go through all this again. God done delivered me. He has showed me the light. I'm like, I cannot go back. And one thing about God's truth is this. Once you know that truth, you cannot go back. Your whole entire life changes. It changes for the better. And I couldn't ignore what God's word said because it was the truth. And he kept showing it to me day after day. So The lady in the store, go back to her. I told her, her eyes got big as a balloon. And she said, Sheila, do you know I picked up my ritual book the other day? I said, you picked it up? I said, do you know why? She said, no, I don't. She said, but you know, it's strange. My son doesn't even want to talk about being in fraternity anymore. I said, what are you talking about? She has a son, and he's a Catholic, I think. And she said he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't go to meetings. He doesn't do this, doesn't do that. I said, God is working on him. I said, because he's seen one of those denouncing videos. And I said, if he is a child of God, I said, I promise you, he cannot ignore the truth. I said, because God is going to badger him. I said, until he comes out. And she said, I tell you what to do. She said, she said, write my telephone number down. So I pulled the phone number I put her phone number in my phone. She said, send me that video. I said, okay. And it just shocked me because she's the first one and she's an older one. And she said, send me the video. I said, okay. And I hugged her and she said, I love you, Sheila. I said, I love you too. I said, nothing is going to change that. I said, nothing, no. I said, I said, I'm no longer a Delta. I'm not a Sorority any longer. And she said, it doesn't matter. She said, I still love me. I said, okay. So I got in my car and I prayed and I said, Lord, show me the video that you want me to send this one. I said, and he reminded me, he said, now keep in mind, they are older, like your mom. He said, they don't have very much patience. He said, so you cannot go give them a long, long video. He said, I need you to get something short and to the point. I said, okay. So it's the same video that he sent me in 2019 on YouTube. So I went and found it and I sent it to her that night when I got home because I prayed and I prayed for her son as well. And I said, Lord, I said, you've always said, just tell your word and you will do the rest. And she texted me back the next day. And she said, Sheila, thank you so much. And she said, I love you. And when I sent the video, I told her, this is the video that God had put up on my heart. And I said, I hope and pray that it blesses you. And I said, if you got any questions, I said, please don't hesitate to call me. So, like I said, that was about 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard from her. And God says, you did what I told you to do. And that was it. And I left it as there. And I said, Lord, I hope so. But, God will give you visions. He will allow you to see things. And there was one former older Delta, because as I said before, but at the place where I work, there were a lot of older Deltas. So one of them was my boss. And I went to her and I told her, I said, you took me up under your wings. I came to the sorority. And I said, but I have to tell you something. How about our conversation lasted 2 hours? I was on my lunch break. And she told me, she said, Sheila, I read an article or somewhere that one lady left because of that Minerva. And I kind of paused. I said, Holy Spirit. I said, please let me respond. What do I need to say, And I said, yeah, that is the reason why. I said, because it's an idol. It's a false God. And I said, we don't think anything of it. I said, but God said he thinks so. I said, the oaths, covenants, the rituals, all of that. He's going to take that all into account if you know it, if you know the truth. And what God told me when I was coming out, and after I read my letter and everything, he said, Sheila, if you had stayed in that sorority, knowing the truth that I had given you, he said, there were going to be deadly consequences upon your life. And I just paused. I said, oh my God. I said, are you serious? He said, yes, because you know my truth. And you were going to try to reject it? He said, no, that wasn't going to happen. He said, so I also did it just to see if you were going to be obedient. He said, because what does my word say? I said, if you love me, I'll obey the commandments. He said, so you loved me and you obeyed my commandments. He said, don't you know how proud I am of you? And I just cried again. And I was like, Lord, I said, thank you. I said, thank you for the deliverance. And then when my cousin went through all of that, 2023, after she had sent her letter in 2022, and we prayed over the phone, And she said, Lord, she said, I could have been done with all of this. She said, but in her journey in being a Delta, she said she had gotten up at her church and her pastor had said, everybody who wants to denounce this, stand up. She said, but she stood up for the wrong reason. She stood up for proud to let people know that she was a part of Delta. She stayed out of it for 25 years, but did not know that there was a process. She just walked away. Then she was getting close to 60. She said, I want to be a Delta deer. And she got back in it the last 12 years. And she was upset every time they had a meeting and so forth and everything. So when she got out in 2022, she didn't turn back. And she said, during the process of last year, I think she got her letter. She got her letter before me. And I said, wait a minute, Lord. I didn't send my letter in before her. I said, how'd she get hers? And Lord said, okay, he said, you already out. He said, they got your letter. He said, they just had seen it. He said, but email them. And I did. When I emailed them, because I'm the type of person, I'm organized. So I went back and got the email that I sent to them when they sent me my letter. But let me tell you how the devil works. In 2022, the email that they sent me about they received it, it went straight to my spam in 2022. It was in December of 2022. And I remember I was up because I'm like a night owl on Friday and Saturday night. I just be up cleaning, listening to worship music or whatever. And just so happened, some said, click your spam folder. There it was in my spam folder. And I said, Lord, they sent me this. And I said, what do I do? And it was in the spam. But when I got ready to go and put it back in my inbox, it was gone. I said, oh my goodness. I said, these folks are not going to send me my letter. I said, oh Lord. Lord said, go to bed and wake back up later on today. And sure enough, when I woke back up later on that morning, there was the letter, the email. And I was like, let me read this. So I went on and I read it. And as I read it, I think I printed it out. First thing on the renunciation letter, religious beliefs. I said, oh my goodness. God spoke to me just as good. He said, ain't showing you right there. It is not of God. He said, because if it was of God, he said, why would they put it on the letter? I said, oh my goodness. I said, Lord, you're so right. So that was in January of 2023, last year, when they sent it back to me. I signed it. I scanned it on my phone. I sent it to them. I said, good riddance. I said, y'all can have this. And I sent it to them. So, of course, they took their dear beloved time because, of course, they don't want you to leave because they lose money. So I went on ahead and my cousin said, I haven't received mine. She said, I ain't going to even worry about it. So I know how my cousin is. She's very stubborn. She's going to do her. Sometimes she won't listen to God. She got to take things into her own mouth. Well, if they don't send it to me, I'm going to pay my dues. I was like, girl, I said, do you hear yourself? I said, you have written a letter to tell them that you were getting out. And I said, all of a sudden now you told me you're going to get back in. Well, they hadn't contacted me and I'm not going to worry about it. I said, oh, Lord. I said, Lord, why? I said, why do you have me to be the messenger for my cousin? I said, why? So anyway, month or two went on by. And God spoke to me and I was riding in my car. He said, when you get to work, I need you to call your cousin. Tell her to throw everything away. I said, what? I said, wait a minute. I said, she's thrown everything away. So let me backtrack. That was in 2022. She was still trying to hold on to something. So last year, it came around in 2023 when they sent me my letter. I sent it back to them, scanned it, still hadn't heard nothing from them. So when I called her, and it had to be in February because she was still finding stuff. I had gotten rid of all of mine because God, you know how he does, look here, look there, so forth. So all of my stuff was gone. My nephew made sure of that. So she was trying to keep some. And I was like, I said, are you sure, Lord? He said, yeah, I need you to call. Tell him to get rid of everything. So I called my cousin and I told her, I said, God told me to tell you, you need to get rid of everything. She said, girl, how do you know I'm trying to keep something? I said, are you serious? She said, I bought it. It had a brand new tag on it. I said, girl, you better get rid of that stuff right now. She said, girl, the Lord knows to call you because you knew I was saying something. I said, I didn't know. I said, but he did. And sure enough, she did. And so she went on ahead. She said, I'm throwing it away. I'm throwing it away. She said, girl, don't you know I'm just coming? I said, it does not matter. I said, you got to get rid of everything. And her husband saw it. Her husband didn't want to throw it away. He wanted to give it to somebody else. She had everything in bags. She said, let me tell you something. She said, I bagged all this stuff up. And God told me to give it away because they could not burn where she lives. They could not burn it. So she had to throw it away. And it was the same way with me. I lived within the city limits, but kind of like, a little country town. But I just threw everything away, just like he told me. So I threw everything away. But there was one thing. I did have a Delta Blazer, and I was getting ready to throw it away. And for some particular reason, God says, you can give that to her. I said, but you told me I had to get rid of all of this. He said, yeah, but I want you to give it to her. And I'm like, okay. I said, it's kind of strange. I said, but I'm going to do as you say. So my coworker, when I came back and I told her, she said, Sheila, I prayed about it. And she said, God says, I'm giving her permission to give that to her. And I don't know why, to this day, he told me that. But I had to, that's what's my homegirl. This is one of the girls that I penned when she pledged undergraduate. And I gave it to her. And I said, well, God, you told me to get rid of everything. He said, no, I want you to give it to her. I want you to give it to her. So I didn't understand why. He said, because you're going to see her later on, and you're going to give her your testimony. Sure enough, he allowed me to have a dream. And I saw her at the post office. How about 2 weeks later? She was at the post office. And he said, you got to tell her. And I told her. She didn't flinch. She didn't bother her. She was like, yeah, I heard somebody, denouncing and renouncing as well. I said, okay. I said, well, now, Lord, I did what you told me to do. He said, yeah. He said, I wanted you to. He said, but everything else you got rid of, you did exactly what I told you to. And I said, but it was just strange to me. But then come to find out, one of my friends had told me, she said, you didn't know she's in covenant. And I was like, what? And I guess she preaches. And I was like, oh, okay. But so I said, God, I still don't know why. He still hasn't told me to this day why he wanted me to give. Because, God orchestrates everything. He has a plan and a purpose for whatever he does. And in due time, he said, I'll reveal it to you. I said, okay. I said, I'm not going to worry about it. I said, if you reveal it to me, that is fine. I said, I am good with that. So come last year, I finally received the letter in May. And I was just crying, and I thank God I put it in a folder. I got a binder with all the information that God allowed me to do my research. Out from among them, I got papers in that. And then just this year, a friend girl of mine, she said, Sheila, I have an article that I want you to read. Come to find out, it was a white girl that was in a sorority. She left. And do you know, everything that everybody has said, that what God has given them to say, she said the exact same thing. She said, it's not of God. She said, don't y'all know, even it says Greek, you should pick up on that. You're dealing with Greek mythology. I never really even thought anything about it. And so when I read this girl's article, it blew me away. And I think her title was Before You Pledge. And it was a part 1. And she had everything in it, all the same scriptures that God has given us, the same exact thing. And I was like, Lord, it is more people. He said, yeah, Sheila, it's not a color thing. He said, if you know me and I give you the truth, he said, you're going to present it. And this young lady who wrote the article, she wrote it back in 2018. And I read it back and forth. I just read it again the other day because it just blessed my soul. And he said, if you know of anybody who's thinking about it, give that article to it and let them read it. Because when I say she went deep, just like all of us, all the scriptures, everything. And God reminded me, he said, Sheila, in Matthew, I think it's Matthew 7 and 8, when he said, he who asks receives, he who seeks finds, he who knocks, the door should be open. And he said, you asked me, and I gave it to you. You sold it to me. And he said, the door was open. He said, so it was you and what you wanted to hear from me. And he said, I had just been waiting. He said, I've been waiting on this moment. And I was like, wow. I said, God, so he said, I knew the day that you walked into pledge, and I knew the day that I was going to deliver you. It blew me away. And as I said before, it's like he still reveals something to me. And back in 2022, as I was coming out, my brother had COVID and he was in the hospital and so forth. And my mom and I, we were staying in South Haven or Olive Branch or somewhere. He was close to him. But I remember I was in, I guess, in the lane, at the stoplight and whatever. And so in front of me, there was somebody with a Zeta tag, somebody with an Alpha tag, somebody with a Kappa tag. And I was just looking, minding my own business. And God spoke. He said, Sheila, let me show you the difference. He said, between you and he said, others. I said, what do you mean? He said, others. He said, other sororities and fraternities. He said, see, the white people, they let it at college. He said, they leave it because it's a funny thing for them to do. He said, but what you all do, and he's talking about us. He said, but what you all do, he said, you take it to your house, you take it to your careers. He said, you take it to business places. He said, you bring it into my church house. And he said, guess what else you do? You're bringing them till you die. I'm just driving. I said, oh, my goodness. He said, you think about it. He said, y'all carry everywhere you go. He said, you let people know that you're part of it. And he said, that's how they identify you. Sheila the Delta, or Lala the Delta, or Bobby the Alpha. And I didn't realize that until God showed me. It's an identity thing. You call that person's name and then you attach them with the organization. And I never looked at it that way. I said, well, you are so right. I said, well, you're so right. That's how we identify. Because one of my coworkers were trying to remind me of a guy who died at Alcorn. And he gave his name. And I said, I think I know him. He just said, oh, it's Jerry. You remember Jerry the Delta? Jerry the Sigma? I was like, oh. And then that's when God said, he said, see what I'm talking about? He said, that's how you identify each other. You don't call them by the first and last name. You say Jerry this, or Sheila this, or Monica this, or whoever it is. And I was like, identity. I said, you're exactly right. And then I think it was last year. Yeah, last year. The 9 cardinal virtues. And I think when I was at the conference, I think Melissa mentioned it. And I kept looking at it and I said to myself, now I had what makes this come. And he said, the fruits of my own spirit. I said, Lord, have mercy. And, as I was coming out, he allowed me to watch a lot of videos. And one girl, I think she was an AKA, and it was called AKA in Faith or something. And she had the scriptures lined up on her YouTube side by side. And that's when God says, go to my word and show me something. And I kept in my mind, I was like, when it said I was a pyramid and so forth. And I was like, where have I heard this from? He said, Book of Corinthians. And I said, oh my goodness. And then he told me, he said, this is my word saying Deuteronomy 4:2. I said, you said, do not add or take away from your word. He said, exactly. He said, every last one of y'all flipped it in the name of whoever the sorority or fraternity is. He said, you flipped it in the name. You took my scripture and you flipped it. I said, Lord have mercy. And there was some other things that was, but the thing is, let me say this, when he had me to destroy my ritual book, he didn't even have me to go back and look in it. He had me to go on the internet and pull it off. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I showed one of my friends because, like you say, it's on Google. And I pulled it off. And in the back, when it says, your soul will never be free until final judgment. And when I pulled it off the internet, my friend girl said, let me look at that. And I showed it to her. She said, girl, that is your soul. I said, yes, that's my soul. And God says, final judgment belongs to the church, not to a sorority. I said, oh my God. I said, Lord, my soul. And what he had me to write the letter, because I had to do my letter 2 times because, as I said before, I forgot my email address. So when I reminded them about my letter, they kind of got an attitude with me. And they emailed me back and said, Miss Sanders, here's your letter. Because I called them, because I told them, I said, you all see your business, send me my letter. I said, and I screenshot everything I sent to them and told them that you all said that you would send me my letter and so forth. And they kind of had a little attitude when they sent it back to me. But when I had my renunciation paper and I signed off on it, I'm like, no, I don't have nothing to talk to y'all because God had already told me this is not of God. I don't need to have a conversation. And I did. I didn't have to have a conversation because God had already given me the truth. So I know God's truth. I don't have to hear from you all. So once I knew it, that was it. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing what you tell me to do, God. I'm hearing your truth. And I was just telling my coworker this morning, and I think it's in the book of John, and I don't want to, uh, uh, the scripture, I can't remember, but he was talking about Pilate when Pilate called Jesus saying, you are the king and so forth. And Jesus mentioned that Pilate rejected his truth. He rejected it. And he said, that's what you all do. You reject my truth. And he told me, he said, Sheila, every time you tell your testimony to someone, always do it in love. He said, because remind yourself, you are that same person. You were sensitive. You backfired on your coworker, your nephew. He said, even the video that I sent you. He said, so yes, it is a sensitive conversation piece. And just to say that, one of my coworkers, she was telling her daughter was in the ambulance Friday. And she was like, Miss Sheila, she said, there's a guy at my college campus and he wants to pledge Omega. He told her that God told him that he could pledge Omega. I said, what? She said, yes. And so she turned around and she asked him, she said, if your pastor asked you to do something in the church and to bring your fraternity in the church to do, would you do it? He said, oh no, because that's against God. She said, so what you're doing, trying to pledge Omega, that's against God. And I was like, wow. So everything that he's allowed me to go through, he said, keep in mind that you were that person. You were sensitive the same way. And so every time I do it in love. My coworker said, I never heard you tell your testimony the way you did. Because I have a coworker and he works out here. And he said he pledged during COVID. He said he was just doing something. So he asked us, he said, any of you all Greek? Again, God says you must tell them, yes, I was Greek. But now God has delivered me. And I said, what made you do that? And he sat down and I told him. And with him, it was only for maybe about 30 minutes because he had to go. He was a coach and so forth. He said, well, can you send me that video? And I think it was the video with Minister Tommy. And I said, okay. I sent it to him. He's still here on campus, but he doesn't even come back in our office at all. And I was like, Lord says, did what I told you to do. And he said, you're going to continue to keep doing what I tell you to do. So I'm like, I said, okay, Lord. So in the process of 2022, I did tell one of my aunts, I was a Zeta. I told her that I'd come out and everything. And to say all of that, one of my cousins, she's a Zeta, and now she's an Eastern Star. And her sister told her, she said, that's not a God. She didn't say about Zeta. She knew the Eastern Star was. And she said, it's not a God. She said, you need to get out of there. You don't need to do it. And her mom told her. And I told her, I said, it's just not that. I said, it's Mason, Eastern Star, fraternity, sororities. I said, any kind of secret society that God has told us, it's against God. And she said, I didn't know the sororities. I said, yes, it's deeper than you ever think until God pulls the blinders off your eyes and he shows you. I said, it's deep. And I didn't really know about the covenants until you all mentioned it. And God just kind of gave me a flashback and told me. And I remember, I want to say it was in 2019. I pinned my goddaughter, and God reminded me of it. And we were in a dark room, candles and everything. And he said, "What does that seem like to you, Sheila?" I said, "What do you mean? What does that seem like to me?" He said, "Candles. You are calling off founders and aliens and all of this." He said, "Tell me what." He said, "Just tell me, what do you think this is?" I said, "It is a ritual." I'm thinking, God, okay, it is a ritual. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "But witchcraft." And I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Go look it up." And when I looked it up on Google, there were these white women had robes on with candles. And I said, "Lord have mercy." I said, "Witchcraft." So my cousin sent me a video of a young lady said, "Girl, I was a witch. I was in that sorority and I didn't even know I was a witch." And I said, "Lord, why we don't see this stuff when we're in?" He said, "Because you don't need to." He said, "You're in it because you want to be a part of this." That's all it was. You wanted to be a part of, but you never researched. You never asked me. I said, "I sure did." I said, "I just remember telling you, if this is for me, it's for me. And if it's not, it's not." That was it. And so I just didn't know what else to do beside when I came in all this knowledge. And of course, you wanted to tell everybody, and like you say, you have to do it God's way. You have to do it his way. You cannot just go off on your own whim doing whatever it is. You have to do it his way. And when you do it his way, he blesses you. And I think about Dr. Charles Stanley, his favorite thing is obey God and leave the consequences to him. And every time I think about that, I said, "Okay, Lord, I'm obeying you. I'm going to leave the consequences to me." That's it. And God reminded me, he said, "Sugar, the prayers of your grandmother and your grandfather protected you while you were in college." He said, "But you still wanted to go into Legend Delta afterwards." He said, "Your prayers of your grandmother and your grandfather protected you." And I was like, "Lord, I had no idea." I said, "I had no idea." And I said, "Lord, so if I get a stayed in there, I don't have any children. I'm not married." He said, "It would trickle on down to your nephews, your brothers, and whomever else." He said, "Because it's a generational thing." And I was like, "Lord, thank you for breaking the covenant." I said, "Thank you for forgiving me of the oaths that I took that I did not even remember until he brought it back to my remembrance." And I said, "I thank you, Lord, for everything, all the deliverance and everything." I said, "Whatever you're teaching me," I said, "just, I thank you." And I said, "I pray that who's ever still in this sorority fraternity, just see God. You know, it's a scary thing because I was scared. But I told God, I said, "Lord, I'm not scared." And I wasn't when he revealed it to me because I really wanted to know the truth because I had seen your video and I'm like, that didn't happen by chance. I said, "God, I know that you are an intentional God and he has a purpose and plan for everything that we do." So I know he was intentional. He was intentional on that day that I was on my way to work for me to watch that video. And I'm like, "What is this?" So what? But didn't have any idea that it would start turning your heart. And so from that, I was like, "Thank you." And my cousin said, just last year, she said, once she got that letter, she felt the chains break from around her waist. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." She said, "I'm free." She said, "I am free." She said, "I'm at such peace." I said, "We don't know what we get involved in." And I said, "We just go through it. And we just don't think about it. We don't ask God about it. And when you do, he's going to give you the truth." And as he said, the truth shall set you free. And it does. It sets you free. And free indeed.
Free indeed. Amen, Miss Sheila. Praise God. Praise God. Thank you so much. Wow, that's a powerful testimony.
Yeah. So this is where I am today. And I thank you all because God allowed you all to be an instrumental part of this. And I had no clue what was denouncing, renouncing was none of that. And, when God spoke, I just moved. And my friend said, "Shima, I saw the moving." She said, "I saw the glory of God upon your face and how you were just taking in all this truth that he was giving to you." I said, "Yeah, because I didn't know." I said, I really didn't know. And so, as he was bringing me out, only thing I could do was surrender to him. That was the only thing I could do is surrender.
Thank you. That is so powerful. That is so good.
Yeah. I,
It's so good.
but I just thank you. Like I said, God placed you on that YouTube for me to see that video, to orchestrate all of this. And I have to say this, even when you were doing all the denouncing videos and everything, and I didn't tell you, but God allowed me to see a vision of myself on your platform. And of course, I refused it. I was like, oh, Lord, why you let me see this? I said, this ain't going to happen. I said, I do it on YouTube. I said, I don't know what you talking about. And then when you came up to me, and before you even left, God said, this time. I said, okay, Lord. I said, I'm not going to be disobedient. I said, because I want my blessings. So I was humbled, and I'm so glad. And I just pray that my testimony will help someone. And even if it's not Greek related or whatever, just to help someone that God is there, that He loves you, He cares about you. He wants to have that one-on-one relationship with you, and He just wants to be able to tell you His truth and who He is and His character. And that's it. And then, like you say, we know Him, but if we're not walking the walk, if we're not meditating, and if we're not studying His Word, then that's something that we need to do.
Amen. Amen. Wow. Thank you, Miss Sheila, for being obedient to the Holy Ghost and sharing your powerful, powerful testimony. Wow, this thing blessed me. It blessed me so good. But since you're not on social media, like if anybody has any comments, any questions, or anything, like you can leave it in the comments. Miss Sheila is always on my channel, so
Yes, yes, yes. And like I said, they can reach me on my email because I check my email all the time. But like I said, I don't post, I really don't post anything. I'm on Instagram. I don't have any posts. I just follow you all. That's what I do. I
yeah.
follow you all, and I think my cousin does too. And then I go in looking for recipes and so forth. So yeah, yeah,
Okay, so I'll put your email address in the description box. So if you have any questions or anything, you can
yeah.
definitely call Miss Sheila. And thank you again, Miss Sheila, for testifying. And thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Bye. Good, Miss Sheila.
Oh Lord.